Alpha, yeah, the first. This is DJ Nicholas on the show. When you hear the trumpet or the flute, know it's a battle. Time to put your vehicle in a drive, ready to travel. Like Mary, you are going to put it on tackle. When the war so easy, and me body. When it
Yes. Good afternoon. Welcome. It is the mailbox. Our the teacher man them there. Yeah, the maths, the carpentry, the technical drawing teacher man them there. The woodwork, the English teacher man them there. Man, oh man, we're there. Yeah, brand new episode inside the program designed for men with guests who are men, hosted by men. And it's aired every Wednesday, unless it's a holiday, at 5:30 p.m. right here on Love 101, the family station. It is the Mailbox, the number one mail program in Jamaica. And this year will make 10 years we're on air, Kev. It is Courtney Morrison, yours truly here, and I'm with my co-host. Hey, all go on, bro?
Kev. Good, Courtney. Great to be here. Courtney, yeah. Good to be on the mailbox. Yes, I'm Kevin Bailey, and together we're here, your regular host. Brand new episode inside a brand new month. The mailbox is sponsored by Fosrich Company Limited, your electrical, solar, and lighting people doing some great things, and you see them in the news. Thank you so much, Fosrich, for supporting the Mandem. This is the program where we challenge, encourage, and empower our men. Before we share what's on the line up, happy Teachers Day to every single educator in the place. A big shout out from Mrs. Basic School in Cedar Valley All-Age School, to Mark Bay High School, Excelsior Community College, University of the West Indies, Caribbean Graduate School of Theology. Every one of you that you have contributed to my growth and development, big up to all of you. Wonderful. Happy Teachers Day. Courtney, know you want to do some shout out to you?
Some holy shout outs. Actually, Kingston College is where most of my years have been spent in the educational system. I want to send a big shout out to Principal Dave Myrie. He's doing an excellent job there at Kingston College. Lady Helen Douglas, one of our vice principals. All the teachers there at KC, you're doing an excellent job. We thank you for how you're grooming the youngsters from boys into men. And also to all the teachers in Portmore, Ascot High School, Greater Portmore High School, Cumberland High School, and the Waterford High School, Bridgeport High School. We thank you for the work you're doing. Mrs. Boyd, Mr. Ross, you're all doing excellent job. Lady Gosling Green, thank you for all that you're doing. Mr. Holness, excellent job. To the primary schools, Mr. Campbell, what you're doing at Port Henderson Primary there. Mr. Jackson from Ascot Primary, and all the other schools. I hope you all feel Epsom Basic School, Lady Sharon Rose. I cannot forget you. Indeed, excellent job you're doing in this nation. Continue to build our children and adults. Kev, it's really been a fantastic time, and we just want to say thanks to all these great unsung persons. Sometimes we forget them, sometimes we don't speak about them as much as we ought to, but indeed they actually formulate the foundation for our growth. So many of our students actually don't even encounter a male teacher though until they reach middle or upper primary school. If more students could experience a male teacher in early childhood or lower primary, it may provide strong, positive role models and father figures for students who may not have one. Students need a diverse teaching experience, yes? Teachers of both genders come with varying viewpoints and experiences they can share with students. Diverse experience allows students to see the diversity of relationships within and outside of the classroom.
Certainly the importance of teachers, and I want to big up the teachers at Gardens Memorial Prep, right there aligned to Marvel Gospel Hall, and all the teachers, especially the church, has played a pivotal, significant role in educating our children from the time of free villages up to now. What an amazing contribution the church has been doing and continue to do so. Big up, teachers. So, encountering both male and female teachers in classroom gives students the opportunity to learn from teachers who they perceive as being similar to themselves. Diversity promotes alternate thinking, which in turn may drive improved performance and innovative solutions. So, today we're stepping inside the classroom, and we know, we are saying males belong in the classroom, and we are going to
100%.
take a look at the role male teachers play within this same space, Courtney.
Yeah, man. So today our focus is the importance of male teachers in the classroom. Are teaching jobs better suited for women? Do male teachers make good mentors? Can male teachers have an effect on boys' academic performance? What are some boundaries male teachers must implement for female students? Some questions there we're asking today.
And of course, we'll be looking at boundaries for male students as well, living in a complicated world. And it
Yes.
becomes more complicated as the days go by. All of these questions and more will be answered today by our very special guest, who happens to be teachers themselves. They are the ones they can speak with authority. Our guests this week are Ashburn Pinnock, and he is president of Mico University. That's Ashburn Pinnock, president of the Mico University, and Mark Jackson, principal at the Ascot Primary School, adjunct lecturer and chairman at the Portmore JTA Primary Committee. So we're gonna have a great, informative, stimulating conversation with our the men them
Oh, yes.
in the teaching space, Courtney. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. So, well, man and man, we want you to remember we need to hear from you. Not just want, we need to hear from you. We're live on Facebook and YouTube at Love 101 FM Jamaica. You can leave your comments via our WhatsApp line at 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. Or give us a call at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328. It's all about our male teachers today. Yeah, all about them. And if you got a favorite male teacher when you were in school or even now, we would love to hear from you. The numbers again, 876-997-3125 or 876-968-8327 or 8. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So man, give us a little shout out now. Yeah. And tell us about your favorite teacher and what you have learned, what you continue to embrace in your life as you remember their contribution. Ladies, welcome your participation. Of course, you can participate in the program by leaving us a message via our WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube. Ladies, remember, no calls or voice note allowed. Man them to use this space. Yeah. So, Courtney, think we have to do a shout out, What do you say?
All the time. After 3, 2, 3. Monday! Yes, man. Holy
man in at a place. And we want to endorse that even as we face different challenges in Jamaica land we love. We have men of integrity, men who are committed to doing what is right, righteous men from Moran Point to Negril. Big up to all the man them. We know it's not easy, but guess what? You are resilient inside of you, God's DNA, and you're committed to doing what is right. Before we head into the main discussion, it's now time for us to get into the segment that we dub Draft, where we preliminary open the way to our main segment. And we're going to be talking about many things with our guests. Of course, some of the questions that we want to ask them. We want to know about their lives. We want to know why is it they have chosen the teaching profession? What is it that they're learning? What are the challenges? What are the successes? All of that, and their views about the state of our educational system as well, because they they are in the middle of it.
Exactly so.
Yeah. So Courtney, I believe it's gonna be a great time. What you say?
I, I do believe it's going to be a great time too. We have two wonderful male educators with us, Mr. Mark Jackson from the Ascot Primary School, principal there, and Mr. Pinnock, Ashburn Pinnock, that is, from the Michael University. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. It's our privilege to have you this afternoon with us here on the mailbox. Happy Teachers Day again to two wonderful, great men, Hong Song heroes. But indeed, today we are lighting you and we want to hear from you. It's indeed a pleasure having you both. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Jamaica. Happy Teachers Day to all teachers and my colleagues across the island. Good afternoon.
Pleasant afternoon.
Good
The second
afternoon.
voice you heard was that of the dapper principal of the Ascot High School, Mr. Mark Jackson, and the first one, debonair Mr. Ashburn Pinnock of Michael. It's good to have you both, gentlemen. We want to start with Mr. Pinnock. We have some questions we want to ask, and we want you to both respond. How long have you been a teacher? And was this profession something you always want to do? Want you to bear that in mind as well, Sir Jackson. How long have you been a teacher? And was this something that you thought of, wanted to be, and you just happened in it? We want to hear from you both. Go ahead, Mr. Pinnock.
Well, I've been in the classroom for almost 40 years, since 1986.
Wow.
I started, started at the Kellett Secondary School after graduating from college. My first job was to teach electrical installation, even though my training was in the social sciences. But I did electrical at CSEC, then CXC level at the time. And the principal wanted somebody desperately to substitute for a teacher and leave. And so I remember my training, you have to be flexible and you have to be able to teach yourself to teach. And therefore I answered the call. What made me, I was caught. It wasn't my intention to become a teacher. I wanted to be a lawyer. And I thought that, but as you know, teachers' colleges are referred to as a poor man's university. And at that time, you could be financed without, fully at 100%. And therefore, I chose to attend because I'm from a poor family and my parents couldn't afford to send me to university at the time. And so I thought I'd go to college, get my teaching qualification, then I would teach for a while, save enough money, move on to university, and become a lawyer. Never happened that way. I went as far as university, obviously, but then my principal from the teachers college I attended came for me after graduation and said that if they invested so much in me, then I should give back to the classroom. I couldn't say no, and here I am today.
40 years. Whoa. And president of Michael University. An amazing story there. Of course, we want to dig in some more. But Sir Jackson, is this what you have always wanted to become? Something you dreamt of, and this is it you pursue? Tell us your story.
So, in retrospect, I remember going to Epping Forest All Age, which is just across from Monroe College. And when I would have gone home in the evenings, I would have taken bits of pieces of chalk from my teacher's classroom and I would take it home. There was a piece of board I would have had, I lean against the house. And I would teach all the stones and trees in the backyard and call them the same names my classmates had and spoke the same way my teacher would speak. So I want to believe that it's a calling for me. And then as I became teenager and was in 9th grade in high school, I started my own school at home because we had an outdoor, like a farmhouse in the country. You have what they call a farmhouse. And I would transform it in the summer into a classroom and teach all the younger children. Then as the group grew every summer, I moved to the Christadelphia and Church Hall. So I have been teaching all the time when I was in high school. And when I graduated, I got a job as a pre-trained teacher of Spanish at Santa Cruz Prep. And I was there from 18, from I was 18 until I became 25, and I said, look, I'm not staying any longer. They didn't want me to leave because they thought I added so much value to school. And that's why I went to college late. I went to Jamaica in 1999, left in 2002, and then ended up in Portmore at Brayton Primary. And I was also president at the council at Michael. And so I came over in Portmore at Brayton, saw how the students were in terms of the fact that they were so academically challenged. So I started teaching them free on Saturdays. And I guess the principal then was Mrs. Hyatt, saw my worth. She made me a homeroom teacher for a 9th grade class. And then she retired. The other principal came, made me dean of discipline. Then I became vice principal. And then I left from there now to Ascot Primary. And so I've been doing teaching all my life. But like Sir Pinnock, I wanted to become a lawyer too. And I also went as far as to do a diploma in paralegal studies. And when I was planning to go fully into family law, then it's like the VP position came and I get drawn in totally and realize that I really have a niche or a responsibility to the nation's children. And that's why I'm still here, stuck at this desk with no regrets.
Awesome story, Mr. Jackson. Mark Jackson, you just heard from him, the principal of Ascot Primary, and his story is somewhat similar to Mr. Pinnock. They have similarities, backgrounds in at Michael, and one still there, Sir Pinnock still being there. We want to go a little deeper and ask you, in your teaching profession, what 3 values has teaching taught you? What characteristics, what sound building foundation would you say you developed during this teaching career? And I want to start with Mr. Jackson and then go to Mr. Pinnock.
I think teaching as a profession teaches you to understand the complexities of the different personalities by virtue of not only students, but also your other colleagues with whom you work. Teaching also helps you to appreciate the impact you have, because as a teacher, you really have great impact, especially at the primary, well, even at the high school, but especially at the primary, when you stand before these impressionable minds. And so a teacher's span of influence can be so wide if you really know how to reach the hearts and minds of your children. You literally can have them eating out of your hand. And also, teaching teaches us also that the hidden curriculum, when you become a teacher, the hidden curriculum becomes so much alive and critical to the ethos of the school in which you serve, and also in helping the students to harness the right attitudes and values. And we know that we get the formal curriculum to work with, which tells you what to teach. But I realize that if the hidden curriculum is not really a rich and fluid one to impact the students, they taking on the formal curriculum then becomes a challenge. Because the hidden curriculum is who you are when you go to the class. What do you sound like? How do you dress? What kind of encouragement do you give? What kind of qualities that exude from you, the teacher, which you are not even realizing is happening, but the students are paying attention to this. And therefore they can go home and talk to their children and say, he's a loving teacher. You didn't tell him that you're loving, but by virtue of how you operate, they pick that up. He's always well dressed. This is what they look on. He speaks to us respectfully. His class is fun and all those other things. So teaching really teaches, and it also helps you to harness some values that you may not have thought that was that important, but you realize that within that context, the school in itself is a nurturing environment. The onus is on teachers to understand their influence and their responsibility, which far supersedes the dissemination of a formal curriculum. You're literally building a life, and education itself, as John Dewey would have said, is life itself.
Wow, 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 the hidden curriculum.
Yes.
And that's so true, Mr. Jackson, because I have a youngster, she would come home every day and say, well, I love the history teacher. And you hear students talking about they are grading the teachers in and assessing them as to whether or not that teacher can teach. Boy, I don't like this teacher. So those are necessary in characteristics. Sir Pinnock, it's your turn. Let's hear from you.
Well, I wonder what is left for me to say. I think my colleague said it all. You know, it's really what it does for me is that humility that it builds in you, and it's sometimes it's frightening the impact that you have on people, not just as my colleague said, not just your students, but your colleagues around you, and you see it every day. Sunday, the last time I went to the car wash on Sunday, and that gentleman came up to me and was talking to me. I realized, oh wait, this face looks familiar. And this was a very successful young man working at Sanders Resort, and doing very, very well. And he said, sir, I have to come and shake your hand, because immediately I recognized him now and we were talking. He said, you saved my life, and I said, how come? And he was telling me when he came to college, he had nowhere to stay. And he was searching for somewhere, and all the rooms were filled on the campus at the time. And he said, I looked around, couldn't find a room for him, but decided I had to help him, and actually placed him in the lecturer's quarters because we had a vacant room apparently at the time. And I placed him there for the rest of the semester until we could find somewhere for him to stay in order to ensure that he could, continue his studies. He was reminding me of, I didn't remember anything. And he said, so you don't remember? I said, no. And he said, sometimes you won't remember because you did the good deed, but I was a beneficiary. I always remember. And this story is I'm sure, Mr. Jackson will tell you, this story is common throughout, the life of a teacher. And it says that a teacher touches eternity. And it's so true because that great multiplier effect, I think the teacher has the greatest multiplier effect in society.
Yeah.
You teach a class of 30, and then you may teach 4 or 5 classes for the day. Just imagine how many students. And when they grow up or when they move on, the kind of effect that they have when they go home to their parents, and so it has to bring back some level of humility, or else you will lose it because it's a great influence you have on people of all spheres, and it's a great. It's also what I call the great equalizer. It doesn't respect class, color, creed. You impact people regardless of what class they're coming from, whether their parents are wealthier than you are, or whether they themselves are wealthier you are. And so it has to create some level of that kind of humility in you. Um, the impact of a teacher is is so great that that's one of the reasons why we may be having some problems today, because it's at age 5 a child must be impacted by both male and female. And if any disequilibrium exists, it will create a problem. And so, as a teacher, you realize how you impact not just the male that you encounter, but the female. And you mentioned the hidden curriculum, and that's critical. It's what you do, and what you do speaks louder than what you say, and therefore people learn from that. So
Awesome, 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 Sir Pinnock. As you spoke about genders, though, we're going to take a little time now to zone in on our boys, because we're talking about the importance of our male teachers to our boys in the classroom and the importance that our male teachers present themselves. And as we said, we most often don't see male teachers until we get to places like primary school. Um, there's a void in the basic schools, in the nurseries. We're not seeing that sort of imagery. Do male teachers make good mentors? Should they be there or should they forsake the classrooms altogether? I'd love to hear from you in the next. I give you both 2 minutes just before we go to our break. Sir Pinnock?
um, life is about equilibrium. It's about balance. And that is why in all species on this earth, you have a male and a female species for the continuance of life. And without that, life would be, would cease as we know it today. It's the same for the human race, and the same for education. And for us to be successful, we must have both male and female providing that guidance, providing that role model, providing for that hidden curriculum that we mentioned earlier, to be so. And therefore, males are definitely very important in at all levels of the education system. It is said that the first 1,000 days, the critical development period of a child, and therefore you must have the male. In fact, that should have been from the home, that prepares them for school. But teachers are tasked formally in society to shape the nation and through education, which includes our own education. And a large part of that is coaching and mentoring, which is part of the teaching strategy. And therefore, yes, it is critical to have the male. And if we don't, you will see the deficit in society.
Thank you, Sir Pinnock. Sir Jackson, anything you want to add? And how can we bridge that gap with the absence of our male teachers in the basic early childhood educational system that currently exists? What can we do to correct that?
But I must say there has been some improvement in that in recent times. I was surprised to have seen quite a few male teachers being trained and are also teaching as early childhood practitioners. So I think the gap is being bridged as we speak, which is very good. And it is not the norm, but we're happy that it is happening. And one of the reasons why I'm quite happy that it is happening, we must bridge the gap, like you said, the dichotomy between the number of female teachers or whether male teachers or female teachers are equally important in the classroom it's real and it is necessary because we have so many dysfunctional homes. If I should take up my registration list for every cohort of grade 1 we have, you'll realize the majority of the students are living either with mother only, guardian, or grandparents. A few of the persons who come to register live with both parents, and hence, if you come into an environment where you're coming from a household which is like basically totally of a matriarchal setting with mother only, and you come to school and it's female teacher, that child never gets an opportunity to be around a male adult to kind of see the diversity in terms of approach to dealing with issues, to see how the different genders relate and behave. And this can impact a child's socialization and development so much so that sometimes when they become adults, there is this kind of emptiness and deficiency, and they don't even know how to function properly, especially the boys, as fathers or as husbands. And some of the girls too, they don't even know how to relate properly to a male or a male partner later on. You see, those early years when a child is being grown, it is extremely important that they have the experience with mother and father, and if not, another caring, whether male or female, whatever the mix is, so they can become a balanced human being to fit in society later on and to impact properly.
Thank you for that, Mr. Jackson. We're talking to Mr. Ashburn Pinnock, principal at the Michael University, and Mr. Mark Jackson, principal at the Ascot Primary School in the greatest parish, soon to be Greater Portmore. And so we're having them both as we talk about the importance of male teachers in the classroom. And they're sharing with us how we can impact as teachers, male teachers in the classroom. Two very important gentlemen. We're going to be taking a break right about now. We're going to be throwing you back to the studio, and we'll be right back with the program here, the mailbox.
Unload rain, in the lake of fire we got to hell. It was prophesied Babylon fell. Remember, without the mark of the beast, you can't buy yourself. Can't buy yourself.
When you say phosphorus, you say electrical. SWA cables, conduits, transformers, and breakers. When you say phosphorus, you say lighting, chandeliers, and more. When you say phosphorus, you say LEDs and solar water heaters. Phosphorus is electrical, lighting, solar, and LEDs. Visit us today, Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. Phosphorus.
The Pesticides Control Authority, PCA, of the Ministry of Health has been onboarded to the Jamaica Single Window for Trade, JSWIFT. Effective April 11, 2022, the Pesticides Control Authority, PCA, has been facilitating online applications of all import permits for pesticides, herbicides, fumigants, and other related products. Traders and their agents will now be able to make online application to obtain both pre- and approved permits, and also make payments for the PCA import cess. Benefits include a single application for multiple items within the same shipment, faster processing, increased convenience, and ease of doing business. The PCA import permit service now on JSWIFT.
Upgrade mom's cell phone this Mother's Day with the all-new DL4 for only $16,650 plus tax. Get a free gift with every purchase or while stocks last. Be mom's hero this Mother's Day. Visit a Digicel store near you or digiceljamaica.com. Digicel, made in Jamaica.
When you say phosphorus, you say electrical. SWA cables, conduits, transformers, and breakers. When you say phosphorus, you say lighting, chandeliers, and more. When you say phosphorus, you say LEDs and solar water heaters. Phosphorus is electrical, lighting, solar, and LEDs. Visit us today, Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. Phosphorus.
Oh, yeah.
In the Lord we trust. Serving is
Welcome back to the mailbox, aired every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. right here on Love 101, your family station. And we're live on Facebook and on YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica. Remember, you can leave your comments via our WhatsApp line at 876-997-3125. In keeping with the festivities of the season, we're talking about the importance of the male teacher in the classroom. We have been having a very deep, stimulating, interesting conversation with Mr. Ashburn Pinnock, president of the Michael University, and Mark Jackson, principal at the Ascot Primary School, adjunct lecturer and chairman at the Portmore JTA Primary Committee. What an interesting conversation. We want to continue. Welcome again, gentlemen. Great to have you on the mailbox. So, Courtney, it has been a great time. I really want our esteemed guest to give your perspective on what's happening to our males. It appears that after a while they exit the educational ladder and we can't find them. They have been distracted by other areas, and it seems that we're missing out on their valuable contribution. While the females continue, I am protesting. We need gender balance. We want back the man them in the place. But Sir Pinnock, can you share what's happening? What's happening with our boys at a particular stage? They seem to have exited, no interest in being educated and moving up that ladder in comparison to our females. And what can be done to correct that?
Well, there are two things. There is this sociological factor, as we are saying, the lack of the male figure from the home and also in the early years of development in the classroom. And that has created a void in terms of influencing them to continue in education. And so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is economics, is a change of values growing up. When we were growing up, a teacher, we didn't check to see how rich or poor a teacher was. The teacher had prestige, and we really, look up to and admire. and wanted to be like the principal or that teacher that influenced you in the classroom. And we didn't care whether the person was driving or not. It didn't matter really. Now we are seeing that the value system has changed, and the role model in society has changed and moved away from the teacher, the nurse, to the entertainer and the sports star, and with the invent of television and media, you are seeing now things glamorous outside even of your own sphere. And so people talking about and taking on people as role model who are multi-millionaires in sports, in basketball, in all kinds of, and so that value system and that change create a kind of a confusion in the youngsters. And therefore, when you now move out and compare, say, the salary of a teacher and what you have to do to prepare yourself for that role, it doesn't make sense because you can now go and play basketball and earn, and etc. etc. So that has now created a problem in society where people are looking on and the role model now has shifted. Now, what we really need is to provide a way. As somebody said one day, that teaching needs to be sexy again. We need to. They're really saying that you really need to rebrand and to remodel and to entice more male figure in the classroom, and also to find a way for them to be able to make a reasonable. I'm not suggesting that we should or can compete with other professions in terms of monetary compensation, but at least we can find ways to make persons be able to live and in a decent way. And therefore, in fact, we saw it recently where there was a program by the Ministry of Education that they provided scholarship for teachers, incoming teachers, to do the sciences and the maths, the MSTVET scholarship program. And we saw at the Michael that our cohort of science teachers, prospective teachers, grew by over 400%. And we saw, and they were coming in with CAPE. And so any of these persons could have gone on to do medicine or engineering anywhere. But because there's an incentive and because they were using that as a way to gain an education. So we have to find more incentives like that, not only to attract them to the classroom, but also to keep them in the classroom, and that will ensure that the gap is narrowed. So it's the economics of it and also the sociology of it.
Interesting. You said that, I almost said Dr. Pinnock. It is interesting to hear that the economics is really providing a deterrence to our male teachers. Mr. Jackson, I don't know if Mr. Albert Karcher, principal at Calabar High School, is listening, but when I remember he was the principal at Tarrant High School, I had a youngster who I was acting as guardian, and I went to a PTA meeting, and I saw over a dozen male teachers. Kevin, that thing impacted me, and I wasn't going to school. I was only carrying someone there. Would you say having male teachers in the classroom provides a sense of security? What does it offer? Apart from our men not, in terms of economics, is not being attracted, how can we rebrand, as Sir Pinnock is saying, to get those men, apart from necessarily incentivizing, but getting them to think, I'm helping to build a nation? Is that possible? Jackson?
I think, to what our society has become, it's a very mammoth task. And I must say to you, almost every profession now suffers because of the caliber persons who we really are left with in terms of young people in society. And so you have to really go to the bottom of the pot and scrape hard to really get the kind of young men of valor and young men of value and quality to put in your organization. And why do I say this? I have had interviews trying to find male teacher to strike the balance in my school, because we have mainly female teachers. And I have to be doing like 3 sets of interviews to find one impactful male. It is also so bad that a college like the Jamaica University have to introduce a program with the acronym PUMP, which is Pre-University Men's Program, which what Michael is doing is trying to attract more males to teaching, but they do not necessarily attract the best. Because what that program does is to get males to come in who are not fully qualified to enter college, but while they're there, they work through a program, and by the time they leave, they come out fully qualified. So what is happening with many of the younger males, based on the decadence of values and attitudes in society, what we used to look at and call solid values and attitudes, that is going through the window very quickly. And that is why they're not looking at the teachers as role models anymore, because some of you can't even buy a good house and drive a good car. The youngsters now have become very materialistic in thinking. And so the scammer is getting more attention now and more respect, and are seen as a role model, and the extortionist and so on, because when they look and see the kind of a lifestyle that they live and the quality of life which they look at and say that's what their dream would be, and come when you juxtapose that with a teacher, many will not want to. As a matter of fact, the irony is too, there are quite a number of educators who say to their children, I don't want you to become a teacher. I mean, the very practitioners themselves will tell you they don't want their children. So there are many odds against getting quality males to come into the classroom. And it is very disheartening, very, very disheartening. And to add to that, there are some persons who are teachers too, who rather than being protector for our children, make themselves perpetrators. And so the disrespect deepens. So people sometimes don't even trust male teachers so much with their kids. They have one eye open and one eye closed looking at them because of the litany of offenses and things we have heard, malfeasance, that we would have heard in recent times with male teachers. So it is like a multiplicity of issues. And so there's no one fixed solution to it. It's a myriad of things. And recently, we're doing a program at the university that talks about the theory of teacher education. And I raised the concern to say the colleges, even though we're in the quest to get more male teachers to come into the system, we might have to start looking at a system of screening who becomes teacher. Because sometimes they come out with the ocular proof. But in terms of the quality that you would want for a male teacher to come into your school and add value in terms of creating students who will come up to be law-abiding and decent citizens and go out as nation builders, we won't have that with many of them. And so when they come into the system, is that the principals have to take them, even though they're now young professionals, and let them, you have to be like mentoring them to say, this is our culture here. This is what we want. And many times it's a struggle because they come with their own value system and do not readily want to conform to what you have in place, which to some of them is quite outmoded and outdated because you're running your school like a church. So what I have to do with every new teacher I have, you have to do an orientation. You have to do an orientation before you sign those 503 forms to the ministry. Because I am telling them that there's a sustainable culture of excellence that exists here. And any effective learning organization should have a policy which maintains a sustainable culture of excellence. So whomever comes in have to understand, this is the brand of this place. And so when I do the orientation, at the end of it, I said, I want you to evaluate this orientation. And your next question is, tell me if you still want to teach at this place before you sign that 503 form, because I make no qualms about how the lessons should be taught, how the lesson plans should be written, what deportment is acceptable in terms of your, by virtue of how you dress and how you speak and all of that. That is plainly put out before everybody who joins my staff. And of course, you have an option. You can either accept this culture or you go elsewhere. And I think more principals in schools have to understand that the teachers' colleges do not necessarily and cannot on their own sufficiently train teachers and make them the consummate professionals you want them to be within the capacity of training. So the principals have to have a structure in place to receive these young professionals and groom them into who they ought to be. But it's a mama task, but it's worth it at the end of the day if we need male teachers to impact. So continue to harness values for themselves first before they can
Yes.
impact our young children.
Wow.
Thank you, Sir
Lemon.
Jackson.
Yes.
It is a mammoth task. We know it's not insurmountable. I
Exactly.
wonder, gentlemen, and Sir Pino could start. Your perspective on it. Is it that we need therefore to be teaching our boys at a particular stage how to create wealth as a part of their education? So not so much know how to attain degrees, but since there's a shift, is it that we have to become creative, innovative into incorporating creation of wealth alongside the curriculum? Your thoughts on that,
Well,
Sir Pino?
one of the 21st century skill that that is in high demand now is entrepreneurial skill. And we realize that entrepreneurship is not just limited to the traditional wealthy people that we know and the families that have always been wealthy. So people can create wealth in whatever way and whatever they do. And so that's part of what should be taught. And again, we tend to reserve certain things, certain skills for particular age and chronological age and stage. And we're realizing now that we have to expose our children to almost everything as early as you possibly can. We believe that they cannot understand these things because they're not ready for it, and that's not true. And therefore, we have to introduce entrepreneurship at a very early age. We see it in the Oriental cultures, the Chinese that we look at, and as early as they are in business, they are in the business doing things, and not playing but helping, and to become part of that culture. So we have to do that. The other thing that we have to do is to invest. The private sector will tell you whatever they want, they invest in it. If they want to market their product, they invest in marketing. If they want a better product, they invest in the product. It's the same for life. You have to invest, and it's ironic that without that kind of thinking, I wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be here, because our parents knew very well that they had to invest in us, in our education, and they will sell the last cow, they will sell the last goat, they will invest, they will throw partner, they'll do all kind of things. They'll go hungry to send their kids to school. Now, the society will have to do that. The government will have to do that to ensure that education is critical to the development of the nation, and therefore we have to invest in it. And a large part of it is investing in our teachers. Your education system is as good as your teachers. And if you do not invest in them in terms of training, in terms of remuneration, in terms of working environment, and training, I mean mindset change that Mr. Jackson just spoke of, you know. And so why should a youngster go through all of that with Mr. Jackson? Although very commendable, and I totally agree with him. But why should a youngster go through all of that when I can go on a site in a more relaxed environment, be a mason, and earn much more money than that teacher? Why should I go through that? And therefore, to look into that kind of dichotomy, as to say, and address it. And that's why I'm saying we have to rebrand and change the way we think about education, because education is not about cost. And if we continue to think it's a cost to us, we will try to pull back the money because it's costing too much. If we think of it as an investment, then we know that our returns will come when we're going to spend less on crime, so we save. We're going to spend less in the medical field, less on security. Because the more educated you are, is the healthier you become,
Exactly, yes.
is the more sociable you become. And so you are investing in the front end in this, but you are reaping the benefits in the back end because you don't have to. The other thing is that education should not be politicized. And therefore, we should have a 10, 15, 20, 30, 40-year plan that is agreed upon by the society, and we should all work towards it. And if we do that, then we'll find out we get more men in the system, we get more qualified women in the system, and we have what we call the equilibrium that we so desire.
Awesome, Mr. Pinnock. I love what I'm hearing, and I'm hoping those in authority were listening to all that you just said to us. You know, I have a personal relationship in terms of living just right next door from where Ascot Primary School is. And we have two great men before us, Mr. Pinnock and Mr. Jackson. And I want to ask the question, how important is commitment and passion as male teachers to the profession? How important is that in ensuring that you remain in the classroom? I want to speak to a personal story with Mr. Jackson. There was a young man who I know couldn't read, but at the time I didn't know. I introduced him to Mr. Jackson in an attempt to get him into Ascot. And he put me through the same questions, you know, why should you want to come to Ascot? What have you heard about Ascot? Because he's not lowering the standard of his school for any reason. And when he found out the young man was unable to read, the first thing Mr. Jackson said to me is, we have to rescue this boy. That has left such an impact on my life, just to hear another man say, we have to rescue that boy. What importance does passion, especially when we come on to our young men who we see are lagging behind, in ensuring that they have a proper education, and as male educators, you devote yourself to rescuing our boys especially? Sir Jackson, I think this question I'm throwing to you is compassion, passion, commitment. What role does this have to play in rescuing our boys?
That is the heart of teaching.
Yes.
Passion and commitment. Teaching is not a job, you know. We call it a profession. For me, it's a calling.
Yes.
And so most of the persons who have remained in teaching over the years are those who are committed and passionate. And those are the ones who the children will always remember, because those teachers inadvertently just love what they do, come what may. Matter not how much politics in, if there's such a word, is happening around them with education. It matters not if parents are ungrateful. It matters not if the principal is not supportive or what have you. They just have that innate passion and commitment to education. And so nothing really diverts their attention but to come and bring children from rags to riches. So that is it. There's nothing else. There's no going around it. But if we do not prioritize and incentivize education, all of what we're talking about this evening about male teachers coming to it and staying, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Because the reality is, male was born to be head of the household and to provide for self and family. And which man is going to take up a job? And may I also say, teaching is extremely demanding and stressful. Who's going to take up a job that is so demanding and stressful? And at the end of the month, you can barely pay your bills, manage, just take care of yourself and your family and remain in it. And so what teaching has become for many males is a stepping stone. And especially these younger ones who are coming from college, the younger, the millennial people who are coming out into the schools now, they have no job commitment. I'm seeing it. So the code of regulations talk about being professional, and if you're leaving a job, you should give at least a month's notice. These young people will come to school Friday and you don't see them on Monday, and they say they get a better job. They're gone. So what most of the older people had in them in terms of this care for students, I can't leave my students at this point and I have to take them wherever. This younger generation of teachers who we have, and it's right across the board. If I talk to my friend who's a manager at the insurance company, they will tell you they come this week and next week, they just send in a letter so they get a better job. The commitment that you're talking about and the passion for service right across the spectrum in many different fields is not there again. Mark you, they come to you technologically equipped. And so technologically, it's their world. They are digital natives. They can manipulate the technology. But when it comes to the soft skills, in terms of being caring, in terms of collegiality with colleagues and so on, and just giving of self without watching the clock and all those things, don't expect it from many of the younger persons we have coming in. And so, as you ask about if it is important to have male teachers in the system, yes, commitment and passion, but how are we going to get that? A number of things will have to be done differently.
Yeah.
Mr. Pinnock, look like you're burning to answer.
Yes, I've seen West Indian cricket and Jamaican cricket fail for this very reason. We relied heavily on people's passion, people's commitment to the game, regardless of remuneration, regardless of incentive, because they have a love for it. And they did well for a period of time. But over time, the paradigm shift. And so you have to make it professional. You have to
Yes.
now get in professional coaches, get in professional systems, get in marketing, get in investors, and you build a professional unit and a professional structure and a professional system. While Australia and India and the others were doing that, we were still relying on the love of what Holding and Viv and Clive Lloyd and all the others had.
Yes.
And we are seeing some level of performance now in the 2020 because they are reaping a lot of money from it. That's what the Jackson is talking about. Different generation, different incentive, different value system. It's the same for our education system. We had a committed set of male who were teacher this, teacher that, and they spent all their lives giving service to the profession. And many of them end up as paupers. Many of them died poor and lonely. You see?
Wow.
And we are still relying on that today. We have to ensure that we build a professional system, that we invest in it. And if we want early childhood to be the leader, we have to invest in early childhood, we have to invest in the school plans, we have to invest in the teachers, we have to pay them more. We have to, so that they are comparable to other places, or else they will migrate, as we are seeing now, and they'll move. And therefore, if we do not want to make the same mistake that we made with West Indies cricket, as we do with our education system, you have to build a professional unit, a professional system, which is not impacted by partisan politics or anyone, because it should be a national imperative and a national objective.
Agreed. Gentlemen, hats off to you both. You're on two different levels of the educational system, but indeed, without question, your focus are the same: to rescue our boys, to rescue our men. And indeed, it's great having you on. Hats off to all the other principals and the strong leadership they're giving the other school. Mr. Dave Murray at Kingston College, Mr. Karcher at Calabar High School. And again, those are men. We thank you for your commitment. We thank you for your passion. Happy Teachers Day. Any last word of encouragement to our male teachers or those who want to enter the profession? You have 30 seconds each. Encouraging our male professionals to enter the teaching profession.
Well, I'm saying to them, come and help us to save the nation. And if we can go down in history, as you remember the boy who saved the nation and the dam in Amsterdam. Was it Amsterdam? In Holland,
Yes, Holland.
where we actually plugged the hole and a little boy saved the entire city. And I'm saying, come and help us to plug the dam and save the nation. Shout out to my colleagues at Jamaica University College, my committed lecturers and teachers and all staff members, and my colleagues all over Jamaica. Happy Teachers Day. One love.
Blessings. Sir Jackson.
I just want to say, teaching is still an important job, and we are encouraging males to come to make a difference, in the life of life. and so our society can be better. So come and be a catalyst of change. And I just want to say, we can use the story of Ben Carson, who many thought was not a brilliant person, and today is one of the world's greatest neurosurgeons. And it was a teacher who helped him to realize his potential. So we need more males to come to help some of our males to realize their truest potential. And since Sir also brought the version of greetings across the world, I just want to say greetings to all. My teachers who celebrated Teachers' Day today, all my teachers here at Ascot Primary, we work assiduously with the nation's children. And we have some wonderful supportive parents, and thanks to people like Mr. Morris who serves in this community and always support us as a school as well. Continue to work with us in the business of education to make Jamaica this better place. And Mr. Pinnock is good too. I'm not sure if it's you or your brother, but I'm just sitting here thinking how things can be. Because I went to Epping Forest right beside Monroe College, and I remember going over there for the Costa Cup football and shouting, "Go Pinnock, go Pinnock." I'm not sure if it's you or your brother, but I'm just saying,
Okay.
this evening.
We're sorry I have to cut you, but we're out of time. We want to say thanks to so gentlemen. It's a blessing having you, Tony K. Brownfield, to Timothy Butler for technical support, and to our male educators, gentlemen, all around, principals.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much. Have a
Thanks,
wonderful
sir.
evening.
You're welcome.
Really
Sir.
appreciate it.
Continue
And
to
thanks
provide.
to us. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks to our sponsor, Foswich Company Limited. This was your program designed by men with guests who are men, hosted by Kevin Bailey and
Courtney Morrison. Catch you next week. Same place next time. That's how we put a wrap on the show. Blessings.
We are gonna run them and when they can't man them.